all right, so when you go to RCR, what is the culture change?
So I walk in the building, and you got banners hanging all over the walls, and it's like walking into the Boston Garden or something, And it's a little bit overwhelming. And now you've got, Will Lynn, David Smith, all these guys that
flying aces
have been there for years and years and years. And I'm coming in there by myself. I'm not bringing any of my people. I'm coming in to lead these guys. And they are looking at me like, I don't know who this guy is. They're kind of reluctant to really move in the direction that I want to move when I get there. But there's a lot of things that need to be happening. There were things that they had really got behind on.
like what?
Everything. I mean, just the way the cars were built and packaged, how heavy they were.
Heavy.
Oh, God,
holy
they were heavy.
smokes!
They were super heavy, man.
Dude, you look at Dad's cars and
Hey, you don't know how good. So you'll love this part. Terry Satchel, the guy I told you about, that helped me, get the interview with Richard. He comes in a few weeks later after I'd been there, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. He comes walking in with a little clipboard. He says, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "Ooh, man." Kind of rubbed my head, thinking, "What am I going to say here?" He said, "Some gun's good, isn't he?"
That's not what you think.
That explains everything. I couldn't explain it any better.
they put any kind of mount, right? Whether it's a hood pin or
Quarter
anything.
inch.
That ain't falling off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You ain't gonna bend that.
So that's what I'm fighting there. And so we ended up fixing a few of the cars, just as much as I could work on, change or whatever with the existing fleet, because it was just a few weeks before we do the first race. We do, and we get all these cars kind of as good as we can get them. We go and run pretty good. We almost won the Daytona 500, won the Busch Clash, won the qualifying race. He wins the Xfinity race, and we come within just a little win 500. Dale Jarrett beats us. So it starts out pretty good. And then we go to Rockingham. I tell you, this is a funny thing, too. You'll get a kick out of this. So the whole week at Daytona, I'm trying to get in his lingo. You're trying to learn each other. And he just keeps saying in the car's neutral. It's this, it's neutral, it's neutral. I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking, well, it must be pretty good. So I don't really adjust on it much. Well, then we get to Rockingham. You're standing on the truck. You can see the cars, right? You can kind of see them. He comes through 3 and 4, and I'm watching it. He comes in. He says, I said, how's the car? He said, it's pretty neutral. And I'm like, all right, man. Dang, that thing looked loose to me, but all right. So he goes back out there again, and that thing's sliding through. I mean, it's the light smoking right rear, and finally comes out. I said, damn. I said, what's that car? He said, that thing looks really loose. He said, I told you it was neutral.
What is
and I'm
that?
like, neutral means loose. That's what he meant. I mean,
That's
seriously.
hilarious.
Yes.
Who knew?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Right.
What he finally, I got in his head a little bit. What neutral meant was like he has do not turn the wheel.
Ah. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
he meant. So
Unreal.
neutral to me was not tight, not loose.
Nothing, yeah.
Of course.
Good.
So I
This
said,
is
I
good.
said, okay, now we're on the same page. So we
told
tightened
you.
him up. We ended up finishing good there too. But
Oh my gosh.
That's
hilarious.
I told you it was neutral.
yeah.
Like that's something that's like Dad. You would think that Dad was Dad being as good as he was everything a race car driver is, but better. But he wouldn't have like backward terminology or like
it was just something he'd been used to saying. I'm sure Kurt Shelmerdine understood it well, but I didn't.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but who else uses the word neutral to describe a loose race car? No one. Like nobody does that.
Okay, so how was the relationship? Like, how
It's
long
not
did-
good. It's not good. We're
With
butting heads.
with
man.
Earnhardt?
Yeah, we
Ooh,
are.
okay.
We were a lot alike, and I was pretty headstrong on what I wanted to do, and he was really headstrong and kind of he was a real dominant figure, you can imagine, and it wasn't the way I was used to. I was used to kind of steering this team the way I wanted it to go, and he just wasn't.
So let's step back to Harry again. Mm-hmm. So when I worked with Gary Hargett, who worked with Harry, and I drove Ed Whitaker's car, who worked with Harry.
Yeah.
And the thing that I learned from both of those guys was that, and this is maybe an exaggeration, but Harry was pretty indifferent about the balance of the car. For say, he would, if it'd get through the corner pretty good, he was good with it.
He just wanted to adjust to the car. I mean,
He would.
He'd figure out a way.
He'd figure out how to drive
Yep.
the car the way it run. He wasn't quite as particular about, man, it's a too tight. You got to fix that too, right? He'd just run it. He'd be like, that's not too bad, right?
Yep.
You worked with him.
We won Darlington in '91. We go to Richmond and we're fighting. Couldn't ever get the car really driving right. And finally he just said, get the rear end locked in. I'll figure out how to make it turn.
Wow.
So he put 200s or whatever it was in the back. He was really good about calling out what he wanted in the car. And if 9 times out of 10, if you did that, it worked.
So what's Dad? Dad's more.
He didn't have a clue.
If I could guess,
he didn't have a clue about what was. He didn't care about what was in the car.
Yeah.
He's basically his saying was, "You load the wagon, I'll drive it."
Really.
And so he didn't want to know any of that stuff. And so,
but he was pretty particular about, like, I heard that he was really headstrong about negative caster in the left front, things like that.
So go to Daytona, the very first race, and the setup that they had, I'm like, God darn, that's got like 1.5 degrees negative caster in the left front. I've never heard of that. And I'm looking, I said, is that right? And they said, that's what he likes. That's what he likes. So, I said, well, that's the first thing we're going to try. So we go testing at Daytona, and, I put the regular type caster in it that we've been running. He's like, nope, get it out of there, get it out. What he wanted, it's funny because Harry was one of those guys that when he was on the straightaway, he kind of wanted to let go of the wheel. So it didn't have any tug in it. And Dale was different. He was opposite. He wanted to be in the corner and not do it. He didn't mind holding it back on the straightaway. He just wanted to be where he wasn't having to put any input in the corner. So it was just a feel thing, and it worked for him.
Was there any drawback to running negative left front caster?
Not really.
In the front?
Not then.
Even it was more common, I guess, in the rear steer car.
The reason it ever even came about is because before power steering, you had to have that, but to be able to turn to it, the driver couldn't even stay in the car for 500 miles. If you didn't have it, because it basically kind of just led itself in the corner, so you didn't have to tug on the wheel.
Why are y'all butting heads? If he's not being, hey, man, I want this spring. I want you to change.
I can't remember exactly what it was. So a lot of it was on, like, pit calls and stuff. He was, like, trying to, bull me around a little bit on pit calls and this and that. And, so Richard, I can't remember all the things, but Richard calls both of us in after about the 4th race. And he said, look, man, you guys got to get on the same page. And it was, it was one of those come Jesus meetings with him. And he said, he told Dale and me.
Did Richard have, sorry to interrupt you, did Richard have that kind of control over Dad too?
Oh, yeah.
Like when they sit down in the room, Dad's
a little bit. He had as much control over your dad as your dad would give him.
Right.
But
so in other words, none.
But he knew your dad was smart enough to know that this mattered, And so what he's trying to say is that if you guys cannot figure out a way to communicate, and what his term was bond. Y'all got to bond. And so
how did you bond? Okay,
this is the way it worked. So we're sitting, me and Dale are sitting beside each other, and then on the other end of Richard's desk, and he reaches over and grabs. All right, he said, we're going to bond this weekend. We're going to Darlington. We're going to bond. He said, we got this, Richard. So we walk outside. He says, we're going to dinner. Me and Tracy are going to be going to dinner on Saturday night or Friday night, whatever it was, at Darlington, and got some guys. I want you to go. You're going to sit right with me. We're going to bond. So I said, all right. So I think this is not going to work. But it actually did. We're at Darlington, and at that time we had a tire, right side tire that was really, marginal at best. It was, you could fail it easily with too much camber and everything. So it was real delicate. And so I told Dale that we were going to go. I told him at that dinner. It was on, I guess, a Friday night. So Saturday was a practice session. I told him we're going to run that tire until it fails because it gave you a good warning. And he's like, what? I said, we're going to see how many laps we can go, and then we're going to keep changing the car till we extend it and try to extend it.
But you need it to fail.
Right. We need to know where it was, where the lap number was.
Ooh, yeah, that is a little bit
But it was risky, but I had him on, but he bought into it. He was skeptical at first, but, so it gave pretty good warning. It would give you a good little bit of warning before it failed. And then you could see it, where it was failing on the corner. So he brings it in after 35 or 30 laps, and sure enough, it's failed. So we take some camber out. We adjust the chassis a little bit for the balance, and we go back out and run another run. We extend it about 5 laps. And we do this, and we come through about 3 sets of tires until we really have changed the car quite a bit. And still pretty fast, but a lot better on the tires. We end up winning. And because we could go longer than anybody on tires. And I remember going up in Victory Lane, and I look at it, he got a grin. I said, that's how you bond right there. Boy, that was our first win.
Life is best lived in motion. And that's why Tire Pros gets you ready for all your driving adventures. Whether it's along corners and curves, across city and state lines. Because we're more than just tires. We're auto care too. Tire Pros, so you can focus on the road ahead.